Welcome to Lead Pods, the official leadership podcast from USMB for pastors and church leaders, where our goal is to increase our impact together.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 146 of USMB Lead Pods. My name is Matt Ersman, and once again, as always, so glad to have you with us for a great new episode today. So today, I'm joined by Pastor Jon Annin. Jon is the pastor of Stony Brook Church in Omaha, Nebraska. Jon will be one of our featured speakers at the Gathering convention coming up here in July as we continue this series of getting to know all the speakers for this summer. Since Jon started at Stony Brook in around 2021, he has led his church through quite a bit of change. And I'm happy to say that most of those changes have gone over really well. His church is healthy and growing. They're working on a second campus. Things are going really great at Stony Brook. But as you know, change is hard. I think change might be especially hard in churches and maybe especially hard right now in the culture and the world that we're all in. So today, Jon will walk us through some of the Stony Brook story and share with us how he's led his church through so much change, really in not a whole lot of time. And we also spend some time just getting to know Jon, his family, his church, as we all look ahead to Gathering this summer. All right, with that, I'm going to let Jon tell the rest of the story. So let's take a quick break to hear from this week's sponsor and get right to my conversation with Pastor Jon Annin.
Great news for the Central Valley and beyond. Fresno Pacific University has received a transformational $10 million Lilly Endowment Grant to equip and support today's church leaders, especially co-vocational pastors serving our communities. This investment expands seminary training, launches new programs, and provides vital scholarships for ministry students. And when you give toward the Lilly Matching Grant, your gift is matched, doubling your impact. Join us in strengthening the future of the church. Give today at fpu.edu/seminary.
All right, friends, I'm excited to introduce you to a new voice to the podcast. Some of you have probably come across Pastor Jon before, but we're in this kind of series where we are introducing the speakers who will be at convention, at Gathering here this summer, and Jon will be one of those, so we want to take some time to get to know him today. So Pastor Jon Annin joining us from Stony Brook in Omaha. So glad to have you with us today. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, great to be here, Matt. I've been a fan of the pod for a while and looking forward to chatting today.
You're the one, huh? You're the fan. Well, it's nice to meet you.
There's a couple of us.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, Jon, we're excited to hear from you at convention. And, you know, it's not, I was just telling you before we started, it's not really fair. We're recording this end of January. End of July is a long ways away. So I won't put you on the spot too much about what you're going to be speaking about. We just want to get to know you and kind of hang out to hear your heart for the convention, for ministry in general. So tell us, Jon, if you're a new voice to people, introduce yourself. Tell us about you, your family, and your ministry, anything that you'd like to share before we get too far here.
Yeah, I am 46 years old, been married to my beautiful wife, Lauren, now for 16 years. We have one son. He is 10 years old. Just kind of a fun fact. Even in dating, we agreed that we wanted to adopt as the way to build our family. So he is adopted. Cool. And we are currently in the foster adopt process to get him a sibling. And so that's exciting for us. Yeah, I actually grew up in the MB world, spent my time at Faith Bible Church and then a church called Millard Bible Church, which no longer exists. Share more of that later, kind of a fun at Stony Brook is a church plant of that church. And yes. I went out to Fresno in 2003 to go to Fresno Pacific to pursue a ministry degree after feeling called to ministry, and met Tim Neufeld and later Quentin Kennison and a lot of those awesome Fresno Pacific characters out there. And right away got an internship at a large SBC church and began as a youth pastor there and loved it. Had a great experience, kind of learned what the big church life was like, probably between 900 and 1,700 people on a weekend over the time I was there. And so a very, very large church. I spent time as a junior high, senior high, children's pastor, next gen pastor, and then eventually a campus pastor out there over about 18 years. And so really enjoyed it. And then in the Christmas time of 2021, felt called to come back to to Omaha, mostly honestly originally for family and to
Mhm.
just get my son into the Midwest for a couple
Mhm.
different reasons. But fun fact, Stony Brook reached out to me, and actually I to them first and then they to me, and got a conversation going, and it really hit it off, and got back at the time into small church ministry and back into the MB world. And that was officially, I began there actually in September of 2021. So
Mhm.
it's been a little over 4 years now, and just honestly had a great experience in
Mhm.
ministry thus far. Getting back into the small church and the MB world, all those things have been honestly fantastic. And so,
Yeah. Very cool. Well, no, you've got a kind of unique story for several reasons we might get to, but one, you grew up, like you kind of mentioned, this was the church that you grew up in, at least kind of, and
yeah.
you were able to come back all these years later. So can you tell us about that? What was it like to come back? I'm sure in some ways it probably felt the same, in some ways it probably felt way different. What was that experience like?
Yeah, it was interesting, and I think I was a little naive even going in like, oh, it'll be fine. But there were
Hmm.
some significant challenges. But I grew up with Pastor Leonard Reimer, who many of you might know from the Southern District in Oklahoma. In the late '90s, he left being the founding pastor at Miller Bible. And to be honest, like Miller Bible left actually closed its doors under some pretty tumultuous times. It was a challenging time in the church, and the doors ended up closing. And for us, for my parents, for me, like that was a tough thing to see
Mm.
a small church struggle and then suffer and then ultimately die. And
Yeah.
kind of in my head, I did one of those, God, I will never do small church ministry ever again. Like maybe big church is where it's at. And so, but yeah, whenever you say that, God's going to give you an opportunity to do exactly that thing. And so, sure enough, that Stony Brook Church of at the time, when I went and visited them during campaigning, just about 35 people were there when I first visited. Uh,
Hmm.
and so it was a church that was definitely in a challenging spot. And for whatever reason, obviously, I think it was God's nudging, the Spirit's nudging that I could do it, I could handle it. We
Hmm.
we jumped in, but yeah. So in 2010, when Miller Bible closed its doors, there's a church named Shadow Lake, which has since left the MB world. That,
Okay.
that was a church plant of Miller Bible, which had gone on to grow and thrive, and it was becoming a pretty large church, 800 people on a weekend. And when
Okay.
Bible closed its doors, Shadow Lake put a campus of Shadow Lake back in the building,
Okay.
almost immediately. And Stony Brook was born from there. Just a few
Mm.
months later, they were like, "Hey, we got this. We are a church. We can be a church. We don't need to be a campus any longer." And that was about 2010. So it's kind of fun to be pastoring in the build. It's actually the same building I grew up in.
Uh-huh.
And I spent a little bit of time. My family moved and we went to Ashland for a while. And so we commuted eventually, but we spent about, 4 or 5 years at a Baptist church and a Methodist church. But the vast majority of my life was in the MB world. So coming back
Yeah.
has been great. I've enjoyed the district, being on teams and partnering up with them. It's really been a very rewarding and very neat experience. And you know how it is. You look back on it and you see God's sovereignty like all the way. It's like, wow, that's really cool. So
Yeah.
it's been
Yeah.
good.
Well, it's cool that you have experience at, a smaller church in Nebraska and then a larger church in California. And probably not too many of us have been in both of those situations. Can you just tell us about that a little bit? Like when you moved back to Stony Brook, what were the like, oh man, this is a challenge I didn't see coming, or like, oh, thank goodness I don't have to deal with that anymore that I
Yeah.
used to have to deal with. What are some of the kind of pros and cons from your personal experience?
I think right away, the first thing I would say is that a lot of times we judge churches as good or bad if they're big or small. And,
Yeah.
and that is simply not accurate. There are
Hmm.
incredibly healthy and unhealthy small churches and incredibly healthy and unhealthy big churches. And
Agreed.
so that really is the key. However, there were some things about really having both experiences. I could really merge both worlds pretty well because there are some experiences in a small church which are challenging for a church to
Hmm.
grow under. There's that the very family style feel, a very almost, if you're not careful, insular feel with a lot of subculture that's created over time.
Hmm.
And the first time guest walks in and they're either attacked by everybody because they're, hey, we have a fresh face,
Yeah.
or it's they don't know how to break in, and it's
Hmm.
tough to break in. So coming from the big church where we took the guest very seriously, and their
Mm-hmm.
experience of church life very seriously, it has been pretty helpful. On the flip side, the big church can kind of lose its heart a little bit if you're not careful. And
Mm-hmm.
so making sure we're fostering really great, really healthy, very intimate relationships among the congregation is helpful and honestly a lot easier with a little smaller congregation.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm so glad you said that because you're so right. We always jump to size, and there's so many other things that are more important when we're talking about the health of a church. I'm glad you mentioned that. So you come back in 21. Tell us, so last 4 or 5 years, tell me what's changed over the time that you've been there. What are some things you're excited about that you're currently working on, and what are some challenges? What's kind of the state of Stony Brook as you see it today?
Honestly, we're doing really well, and it really is, like I said, kind of just a testament to the Lord and what He was up to. As if looking back on it now, I always think to myself like, wow, that could have gone a different direction. That this could have gone with the finances being tough and the attendance being tough, and just things were tough, and it could have gone bad. But no, it's gone really, really well. When I was hired, they asked me, what are your, pros and cons, your strengths, your weaknesses? And I said, well, my weakness is I've actually never done the job you're hiring me to do. I've not once been a lead pastor, but my strengths are I've done just about everything else. So I'm a jack of all trades. I know the tech booth. I know how to, keep an eye on music a little bit. I know at a high level youth and children and the experience of those two worlds. And so I'll kind of be a jack of all trades. And I think that's really served us well. Because when I arrived, when my wife and I arrived, there was no children. There's just like two or three. Talking with my friends, like they couldn't really invite their friends to church that had kids because it was kind of tough, kind of awkward.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've grown to be a really solid, thriving church here in Omaha. Depending on the week, we average approximately about 150 people on a Sunday.
Wow. Okay.
Including kids. We have a thriving kids ministry now.
Yeah.
A couple kids. We added to the mix well over 17 to 23-ish kids. So we have a healthy kids ministry. Youth are rock and rolling. To be honest, we have a great staff here, which has been key. Anybody who knows, I know some names like Melissa Hanna or Kristen Pickup or some of those people that have been at Stony Brook for a long time were pivotal. We have a great worship experience that Kristen leads, and that was nice to have that dialed in immediately.
Yeah.
Even when the church was kind of in a tough spot, the worship team was rocking and rolling, and so that was nice to have that dialed in. But we've made a lot of changes. We serve everywhere we can in our community. We're doing outreaches regularly, trunk or treats and Christmas events and things to invite the community in. We're missional. We're serving around the world. Somewhere we take a team somewhere internationally every year to serve with our missionary partners. And that's fun because that was going to begin as a youth ministry event, like taking our high schoolers to Mexico. And we haven't quite got there yet where our high school parents are comfortable with their kids going on missions. They'll get there. But the adults jumped in. And so we're taking 10 to 14 people internationally every year. So that's been a big culture shifter and changer for us. And then adding the component of growth groups, which I really believe in. So throughout the week, there are 11 gatherings in homes or at the church building of 6 to 14 people doing life together. And so I've been in mine for 3.5 years, almost 4 years, almost the whole time. And it's great. And place where you go for, you pastor each other in those groups. You don't need to have the pastor. One of my big passion points is, pastors are important, but man alive, we don't need to have this thing where the pastor does everything. And the pastor has to be there to pray for you or to do that. I want to be, I always say that, but like your growth group leader can be that person. And in fact, over time, it becomes that. So, and then of course, a lot to do with the kids ministry, a lot of work on that realm. And to be honest, a lot of the change, people always ask, like, how do you experience renewal? How do you change things? It's nice when you have people that come along for the ride. And when I arrived there, I had already done this in Fresno, where we had a church campus and we had a group that was very small and a little older, actually, in this case, very older. Almost everybody was over 70. And we established, we merged, and we were going to do our thing. And everyone said they were in, but when it came time to make changes, nobody was in. And within a year, I think 3 of them were left. And it really bummed me out, because I wanted my people to hang in there for the ride. Now, it had become a thriving church, but the originals were gone. And so when I arrived at Stony Brook and I knew we were going to turn some corners, I was thinking, man, this could be one of those cases where I tried to wait as long as I could, that as we begin to change things, we're going to, people are going to fall away. And we have to be okay with that, because we can't not change. We can't not live because somebody wants a thing a certain way. And I was going to go there. But the cool thing is, everybody hung in there. To my knowledge, it's probably not true, but to my knowledge, not a single person left because they were upset with a change. Wow. And to have a whole congregation just say, we want to live, we want to grow, we want to thrive, we want to get back to impacting our community and making a difference for the kingdom. It's been really cool. And so that's the key. I mean, you can make a change and you can experience renewal where you turn over the whole congregation in the process, but that's not what you want to do. I mean, that's what wasn't my heart in Fresno, wasn't my heart here, but to see the whole church say, we're here for the ride, it's been very, very powerful, very powerful.
Yeah. And that's incredible. So I think everybody wants growth. They want, all the kind of new shiny things that come with growth and change, but change is hard. And it sounds like for you to basically triple your attendance in 4 or 5 years, you don't do that without making changes. And I've heard people say what got you here won't get you there, right?
Correct.
I imagine a lot of things have changed, and I'm glad it worked for you. Can you walk us through that a little bit more? Like, what kinds of things did you see that needed to change, and how did you make sure that it wasn't a divisive time for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think part of it's a personality type. I think some leaders are a little more wired for change. I often joke that I used to try to rearrange my bedroom every few months as a child to find the most effective format,
Yeah.
Part of it's norm. I'm also very comfortable in it. I've been telling people that we're doing the Springfield campus, and they're like, "Are you scared?" And I'm like, not really. I don't say it in a prideful way. Just I don't process fear kind of like that. So I think that's helpful. But a lot of it is just being willing to see where you're at. I always use the example of, Moses taking the people out of Egypt into the new place. And people are like, man, I really want the old place back. I really want the comfort and the pots of food that were in Egypt. Well, yeah, but you're forgetting about the slavery.
Right.
So often, I think you're right, though, but I'd love to speak about it at conference a little bit. And I have to do a little bit of research between now and then. Is just how it feels like as you read scripture, the church people are oftentimes lagging behind when it comes to following what God's doing. From Egypt and all the way up to Peter, and just him really grappling with the change of moving to a faith in Jesus is 100% all you need. And he still seems to be battling that his whole life. And so change is tough. So I think you have to have a great team around you. If you don't, and you're a person like me who's open to change, I think you will make bad decisions and throw people off the bus too early or at all. A good example of this is we have already begun the process of planting a Springfield campus of Stony Brook Church, and we were going to do this a little over 3 years ago, and my Faith and Life team said no. And at the time, I was like, "Oh, come on, guys, we got this. We can handle it." But it was the right call. So you have to have a team that will say no to you as you're doing it. But then you also, again, in cases like this where you need to make a lot of changes, you have to have a team that's willing to say yes as well, and we'll go along for the ride. And then as a leader, you have to have the courage just to, if you know a decision is the right call, you have to make it and move forward. And if you believe it's the right call, and you've prayed through it, you've talked to your elders about it, and you're good to go. You have to move forward with confidence. And the best example I can think of is when I was planning that campus in Fresno. My pastor said, like, this is your campus. Like, you make the decisions. Obviously, the message is from the North Campus, but so this is your campus. And so we had a worship leader who was a great guy and a talented musician in some ways, but the music was tough, and it was gonna be an obstacle to that church growing. And I did not want to make that change. Everything inside my heart was like, don't make that change. And it's going to hurt the people. Like there's going to be some blowback and some wake behind that. And I went to my mentor and said, hey man, like what should you do? What should I do? And he was like, you got to do what you got to do. And if you believe it's the right call, and if you believe, he said, either way, I support you. But if you don't do this now, will you be kicking yourself a year from now, 2 years from now, when nothing has changed and we're still struggling to make a difference? And I said, yes. Peter, if you have a decision in front of you and you're like, man, my heart says no, because I want my people to feel good and feel good about church, and even sometimes honestly about me as their leader.
Sure.
It can be hard to pull the trigger. But if it's prayed over, your leaders have said this is a good decision, then moving forward is the right call. And you know what? I know not every church context is the same. And I've talked with a good friend of mine in the district about how I came into a situation that was much more fluid. And he came into a situation, we were actually both applying for similar jobs at the same time. And he got a job at a church in South Dakota that was a lot more structured and historic. There was not a lot of wiggle room in a lot of ways. And we both look back on it and go, yeah, this was perfect for us. Like, leadership style matchup. He's like, I would be just going batty in a context where it's so fluid, like this. But he was like, but you'd be going a little bit crazy in a super structured, rigid context. And so, knowing yourself. But the answer to your question is you just have to, honestly, you have to lead with confidence and pull the trigger.
Yeah. Man, I like that thought exercise of, 5-10 years down the road, are you going to wish that you did this? And that's convicting, and it's not easy or fun, but that's a great way to process those kinds of decisions. So I like that.
And a lot of times, I think we're in an era right now too, where as we're going through a lot of changes, like on the cultural level. So
just the world is changing. Yeah.
So I mean, think about it. The iPhone is what, 2008? And I mean, it's not that long ago. The internet comes online in our lifetime, and then now we have AI. And so we can see these changes and dig our feet in and say like, hey, this is bad or this is evil, or we can say, in what ways can I utilize these things? Because a lot of times when the change is coming, it's first off, it's coming no matter what.
Yes.
And so you might as well embrace it. And then second, a lot of times things that look very successful are most successful right before they die. And I love the example of when the cars were coming online and Henry Ford was doing his thing, that there was a huge pushback. Like, horses are the way, man. Horses and are the way. And even some of their arguments were accurate. They were like, these things are going to pollute and they're going to kill people and those things were all true, but the benefits outweighed it. And so I think as the church, the more we can be on the front end of change, the better. Now, I'm not saying I'm like this super revolutionary edge. I'm 46 going on 80 in a lot of ways. I'm not on social media. I don't know these things. But when I see somebody that knows these things, we tap into it right away. We have men in our church say, I don't know where to serve, but I'm in the digital world. What can I do? And so we're like, Pastor Jason, the new pastor, it's like, let's start a digital church experience, not a live stream, an entirely self-sustaining, made for the online audience. And that's actually grown now this last weekend. Pastor Jason said to, I think, 17 people, which is honestly, it's a really cool win to see that growing. So
very cool.
So we can say, no, you have to get into the room to worship. Or we can say, hey, maybe we're going to reach you online first. And don't get me wrong, I want you in the room eventually, but maybe
Yes,
we reach you this way and then draw you in over time.
absolutely. I'd love to talk to you about that more because that's something I'm super passionate about, and I think you're spot on. I like that a lot. One more thing on the kind of change aspect, and then we might pivot just a little bit, but I think you're right that the world is changing so fast right now. I mean, just day by day, there's just crazy headlines that we're all having to adjust to. I think a lot of people just feel overloaded, like honestly, just being alive right now. And so then I feel for people who are maybe more hesitant to change. And then for a lot of people, maybe church is kind of their safe place and
Yep.
they need a safe place right now. And then, pastor comes in and say, hey, that's gone. We're going to do this instead. I think I'm probably wired similar to you where doesn't bother me too much, but I do feel for people
Yeah.
who that just is going to rock their world and their world's rocked already. So I know it sounds to me like you're very strategic and you handle that really carefully. Do you have any other advice for change specifically in times like these when it just feels like the world's rocking already? How do we do this really carefully and strategically?
You're right. I actually have grown to love my no people that are in my faith and life team or around me that say, don't do this or think about this. I think as a pastor, I always try to keep that person front and center in my mind. I think you can make changes slowly when you can, which is helpful. And then explain them, but before they're happening, as they're happening, and then celebrate them after they've been made. And honestly, what's also helpful, I know this is going to sound like a cop-out, but if a change is bad, that hurts. I would say that all of our changes have been good. They've all worked out. Now, that may not be the case in the future, but they've all been wins. And a best example is we shifted the sanctuary 90 degrees. Because when I got there,
Interesting.
when you walked in, you were in the middle of the room. And I am an introvert by nature, and I struggle with certain things. And I remember actually visiting Stony Brook years before on Christmas Eve, and I walked in the middle of the room and had to walk in between the pastor and people to get to my seat. And I told my wife, I'm like, this is terrible. I'm like, I have to use the restroom before the service because I can't possibly need to. And
right.
Gestures like those. And so for that and a variety of reasons, we shifted things. And it's a big deal. I mean, it's a big deal. But we got a bunch of people on board. We warned folks that we were gonna do it. And we got a bunch of people to be a part of that. We had the decor all remade. It was a big undertaking, but we actually flipped it in 3 days. We did it between Sundays. And when they got back the next Sunday, I remember the best example is my sister-in-law goes to our church. She walked in, she turned to see the sanctuary, and her mouth dropped because it was like so beautiful. It was just striking. So, yeah. It's nice when your decisions land.
Yes.
If they don't, you got to probably back out as quick as you can. But if you think something through and it's probably right, and you go for it, it's a good thing when it lands. Too many misses in a row, you're gonna get in trouble.
Yes, change is a lot easier when you have a good track record. So that makes total sense.
And one thing I say a lot too is, and I'll this might be behind the curtain for some of our Stony Brook folks, but I'll sometimes say, we're just going to try this for a while, see how it goes, and we'll always go back.
Yeah.
When I say that, I'm usually saying this change is permanent.
Yeah.
But it feels just a little more palatable. However, I do mean it. Like if we try it and it doesn't work, we can always make a change.
Yeah. A wise person, if something's just totally bombing, of course, that makes sense to go back, right? So Yep. Awesome, man. Well, I want to make sure we have a little bit of time to talk about Gathering, but first, I also want to hear more about your campus. So, Springfield, tell us about that. I'm sure it's been a thing you've already mentioned it's been in the works for a while. So, tell us more about where you're at in that process, what that's going to look like, your heart for church planting. Let's spend some time talking about that.
Yeah, my heart for church planting actually grew out of, honestly, a couple different interactions. One was with the lead pods, actually, when Brian Harris was on lead pods, and
yeah,
had some things that just stuck with me. You had other people on, I forget the exact names that have talked about it, but different quotes like, you're never going to have enough money and you're never going to have enough people to church plant, so you might as well just pull the trigger.
Yeah.
And then Brian Harris, talking about Iowa, said that he had a pastor over there that was saying something like he wanted to make it hard to go to hell in Iowa. And I was like, I love that. I love that mentality. And so I began looking around for kind of where we could go next as a church. And for whatever reason, again, probably just the Holy Spirit nudging, I went on a 7-mile drive down the street to a small town just outside of Omaha named Springfield, and began the process of checking them out. And it's a very unchurched little city. Those that do go to church either go to a high church, like a Lutheran church or a Methodist church, but very few people are going to those, or they get in their car and they drive into Omaha. But there was no community of faith in the community where you could come here with the gospel, bring your kids, family, and just have a laid back and great faith building experience. And so that got the ball rolling for me mentally. We did some demographic work, figured out who was there, presented to our Faith and Life team, which is pretty much our, I guess, like deacons, you would say. And they were like, nope. There was most said they didn't care, but one said no. And I wanted a unanimous vote on that level of, and they were right. They said, this will burn us out and you out as a pastor. And they were 100% right. But then a couple of years later, so about a year and a half ago, maybe a year and 3/4 ago now, Pastor Daniel Rodriguez reached out to me and said, hey, if you will lead the Springfield campus planting, the district could support that effort in hiring a pastor. And I was like, if you give us a pastor, then it makes sense. And so we hired Pastor Jason Starineri. Again, incredible story of God's providence. He had applied in the district to be a small groups pastor up in South Dakota. He'd gotten a no for that, but they gave the information to Pastor Daniel, came to me, and long story short, we just really hit it off and hired him about 6 months after hearing about him. And so, yeah, it's been an awesome collaboration. The district has funded us to purchase a church in a box, a big trailer, so we can do a setup and a teardown. We're in the community center in Springfield. We have a core team, I think 10 or 12 people that set up and tear down. We have another 8 or 10 people from our church that just go to that service as their service. Like only about 8 miles away from our Millard campus. It has begun as a video campus, meaning that the message is from the Millard campus, which again, that's a whole different conversation, but I think it's a very sustainable model. I've actually gone to Kansas. I believe it's Cross Point Church in Kansas. And
Indianapolis.
Went to a small town. I forget the name of the town, but watched them do their video church in a rural setting, and it worked. So we had Wednesday nights. It's a midweek service right now, so that our team can be there and on Sunday at Millard. And it has officially opened its doors. We opened on Christmas Eve.
Okay.
Christmas Eve service, and then we've been doing services in January. So Pastor Jason is the campus pastor. Jason Starineri and his wife Leah and their daughter Hannah moved from Colorado here, and honestly, just a great guy. Fits the culture of Stony Brook. He is an associate pastor at Stony Brook throughout the week, and then obviously his main responsibility, probably 2/3 of his job at this juncture now, is that campus and launching that. So we began regular services in January here, and we've seen guests begin to check it out, and the team is doing good. So we have about 18 to 20 people, actually more than that. If you throw in, we have a whole kids ministry every week too. So we wanted to make sure we had kids ministry from day one, but probably closer to 30 people there if you throw all the kids in the mix.
Okay.
Yeah, we had just a handful from the community, but it's going to take time. And the cool thing is the district has funded us for 2 more years. It was a 3-year process from start to finish.
Okay.
So yeah, we're excited. And like I said, I would love to see, assuming and hoping and praying that this goes the way we want it to, and that we think that it will, then it'd be the kind of thing that we could do again more frequently. And like I said, it's a long philosophy conversation, but I think there are times when it's challenging to get a lead pastor, a church planter, a pastor for every single church.
Yeah.
And so sometimes if you can get a great shepherd heart pastor, gonna just shepherd a congregation throughout the week and be their pastor, having the message come in on video is kind of a nice thing. And there are
Yeah.
people that are going to always say like, hey, my pastor's not in the room. I don't want it. Okay.
Yeah.
I totally get that. I understand it. I don't disagree with
hmm
it, but there are
hmm
other ways to do ministry. So it's been a good thing.
And I imagine that a lot of people who have that stance haven't experienced it before, because I'm with you. Like it really can be done effectively if you're again strategic and planning and gifted speaker like you are. So, and I know since you were at a church plant in Clovis, so you've been a campus pastor, you know how that model works. So was that campus a video venue as well as that what you did in Fresno area?
Yep.
Okay,
The
cool.
Fresno area, those are all video campuses, and
hmm
Springfield is also a video campus as of
Yeah.
right now. Now we're open to whatever happens next. We're open to moving.
hmm
We actually kind of believe that there will come a day when it moves to Sunday mornings down the line. I told Pastor Jason from the get-go, I'm like, hey man, if you want to just, I mean, obviously you're a part of Stony Brook Church, so the messages will match up. But if you want to preach live
hmm
every week, you can. But we just landed on no, this is the model we're going to do. And honestly, Jason had the final say in that. And he's like, this is the model, frees me up to be active in the community at a higher level. And this is more replicable in the future if
Yeah.
this is a video. Now, 3, 4, 5 years from now, if the Lord leads in a different direction, the cool thing is it can stay as a campus forever, or as long as we
hmm
want it to, or we can launch them and
Yeah.
celebrate and say, God bless y'all, go, you're a church. Kind of like that actually was what happened to Stony Brook. Like Stony Brook
Mm.
was a church campus.
Right. Right.
We actually forget that as a church, but we began as a video venue.
hmm
Kristen Pickup, our worship leader, would get the message from Shadow Lake with Pastor Brian Clausen, incredibly gifted teacher, and bring it to Stony Brook on Sunday morning and plug in that little disc and go. And that ended up not being the permanent way for Stony Brook, but it did also get it launched. So
Yeah. Very cool. Yeah, our Pastor Brent always says that every church was a church plant at some point. Every church was a church plant. So we can't stop planting churches because we need more churches. So it needs to be this ongoing mission, and we all need to kind of play a part in that. So
yeah.
it sounds like you've got pretty big dreams for the future. So you keep saying this might not be the only one. Maybe there might be more down the road. If you were to kind of forecast a little bit ahead, what do you hope to see from Stony Brook campuses?
Yeah. Again, I would love to see that we go about this in a way that's really healthy. I know there are some really, really aggressive church planting churches in the Omaha area, and
Okay.
they're great, but it is kind of traumatic on the
Mm.
congregation sometimes. And so, yeah, we're just going to kind of follow the lead of the Spirit here, but we would love to see this happen as frequently as possible, because I am honestly kind of falling in love with small towns, because
Mm.
honestly, like Omaha has so many great churches. I mean,
Yeah.
objectively great Bible teaching churches. And I mean, I would argue you're within 2 miles of one, maybe less, anywhere you go in Omaha.
hmm
So I just don't feel like Omaha needs, 5 campuses of Stony Brook Church, but I could see other small towns around the area needing that. And so I would love to see, again, the kind of our dream forecast would be, 10 churches or so in the next 15 to 20 years. So every couple of years, assuming we're healthy and stable, being able to say, okay, this is where we're going to go next. Now, in Springfield, it was different because we could send a team there. Some places that won't be the case, but
hmm
I think there'll be, as we see this become a very practical way of doing things, people might reach out and say, hey, this could work for us.
Yeah.
I have a friend in Wyoming, not in an MB church, who
hmm
they had a church split, and they are dislocated from the original church, and they're like, what do? We have like 10, 12 believers, and
Yeah.
and my brother and I are talking to him. It's like, hey, would you consider, just streaming the Stony Brook message and,
Yeah.
and letting that be your message? And then we assign someone to be a shepherding pastor and
hmm
kind of go from there. And so I think there'll be more and more opportunities like that. And I would love to see, this is an opportunity for interns and for young
Yeah.
pastors to get involved in. It's hard
Mm-hmm.
to tell a young pastor. Now, there are church planters out there who you can drop into a city with a couple of people and say, go.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody is like that. And
Yeah.
so can you drop somebody in and say, hey, you're going to shepherd this group and the teaching's going to be brought in? I think that's more reasonable for a lot of leaders.
Definitely. That's a cool model. And yeah, this is a great time to do things like that. When the technology allows for this, I think it's a great time to consider those options. So you're leading me right. So maybe we can spend the last few minutes here talking about convention, the gathering. You're right on target, right on brand. That's kind of the theme, I think, is cultivate, living on mission.
Yep.
It's exactly what you're doing, man. Like church planting and developing leaders. That's what USMB is kind of all about right now. So again, I know you don't really have your talk all the way planned out, but I guess in big picture in general, what do you hope people leave the gathering with? Like both from you specifically, but also just in general, what for the pastors and church leaders who are listening, what's your hope for them from the gathering?
Yeah. I think, again, I shared this with you earlier, Matt, but it honestly, it's kind of a humbling experience, the thought of teaching or preaching or sharing with this incredible room full of leaders from the nation. I don't even know what to do with that. Honestly, I remember when I spoke at the district meetings, I just feel like that 7-year-old kid sitting at Miller Bible watching, Pastor Leonard Reimer at Byron Elementary School when we were a church plant. Like, and that's who I feel like I am.
Mm-hmm,
But, I don't want, everyone knows their Bible. I don't want to try to educate. I just would love to encourage pastors. I know there's a lot of pastors who are very tired, a lot of pastors who haven't seen certain things happen and that they would love to see happen. I know that from conversations, from talking to pastors that are burnt out and are burning out, and they got in and they were very excited about ministry, and
Yeah.
it's not working out. And like I said, I think what I bring to the table, my gift set is leading through change and being able to change. I look back on my ministry career now and I see how that's all I've done. I mean, I've never grown a church from medium sized to big. I've never planted a church, but I've always taken over youth ministries or children's ministries or campuses or churches who were kind of in a tough spot and needed to change. And for whatever reason, been able to do so. And so just love to encourage pastors to be agents of change. And if you're in a situation where it's not going great, having the courage to flip a switch or to make a move or to do something different, because a lot of times they have a dream. They want to see people get saved or baptized. They want to see ministries happen, prison ministries or food ministries, and they're just not pulling the trigger for whatever reason. And going back to doing the same thing over and over again and not enjoying being a pastor, you can't live there.
Yeah.
So encourage people to make the changes they need to grow and thrive. So that's kind of where I'm going to be living in. And like I said, I'm going to be studying, kind of looking in scripture, obviously, for some narratives and talking how this has always been a thing the church has struggled with is flipping the switch when it's time. And so that's where I'm going to kind of live.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing it already, man. And you're obviously like living it out in real time in Stony Brook. So thanks for your bold leadership. But yeah, it's awesome to hear all the growth and exciting things that are happening there. So keep it up, man. It sounds like it's a lot of great things happening in Omaha and Springfield. So keep it up.
All right.
Okay. We kind of probably should wrap up. I've kept you a long time already. Anything else you want to share before we wrap up today?
No, I think that's good. I look forward to sharing. I haven't been able to attend a conference yet, a national conference, and so I'm excited about attending. I love the district meetings, and so looking forward to connecting with the national level.
Awesome. Well, we can't wait to see you there. Thanks again for your time today, and yeah, we'll see you in a few months. So thank you, Jon. Appreciate your time today.
Sounds good. Thank you, Matt.
Registration for USMB Gathering 2026 opens January 15th. Join us July 21st through the 25th in Salt Lake City as we come together around the theme, Cultivate, Living on Mission with Jesus. Save with early bird rates when you register by May 1st. Don't miss this chance to connect, learn, and be inspired. Visit usmb.org/gathering 2026 for details and registration.
Well, Jon, one more time, thank you so much for sharing with us today. Man, lots of really good stuff that I'm still thinking about from that conversation. And like we said several times, change can be extremely hard, but I really love that exercise of thinking 5 or 10 years down the road. What are the things that I'm going to wish I would have done that are going to be hard, might be difficult and lead to some difficult conversations, but it's going to be the right thing in the end. So that really stuck with me, and lots of great stuff there from Jon. So thank you, Jon. And of course, if you want to hear more from Jon, I highly encourage you to sign up to join us at the Gathering this summer in Salt Lake City. It's going to be a great time together. I'm already really looking forward to it. You'll hear much more from Jon and AJ and Kyle and Andy, Aaron Halverson, as well as Grand Poobah, Aaron Box. It's going to be a great time, so I hope you can sign up to join us for that. All right, hey, once again, thank you so much for making Lead Pods part of your day, part of your week. So grateful to have you with us. Hope you have a great rest of your day and your week ahead, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time right here on Lead Pods.
Thanks for listening to Lead Pods. Make sure you don't miss an episode by subscribing to our show wherever you're listening today. Learn more by visiting usmb.org, and be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We'll see you next time as we learn more practical tools to increase our impact together.